Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment. Richard, the paranormal investigator in Maine, USA, read an article on the internet about a drawbridge that opened in the middle for ships to pass through in his city, Portland. The Casco Bay Bridge is one of the busiest bridges in the city. The article mentioned numerous stories about people who went to see the bridge, and some rumors were that they didn't come back from there. Intrigued, Richard decided to see it for himself and planned to go after midnight. To ensure he wouldn't be tired at night, he slept well during the day. At 12 o'clock at night, Richard set out to see the drawbridge. Upon arriving, he took many pictures and examined the small details carefully. Then he walked onto the bridge. Despite staying there until late at night, nothing happened like he had expected. Disappointed, he returned home around 1:30 in the morning and arrived back at his house within 30 minutes. When he woke up in the morning and was drinking his tea, a sudden thought came to his mind. He reopened the same article on the internet and started reading it again. He noticed a line that he had not read before, which stated that all accidents on the bridge occurred between 1:45 a.m. and 2 a.m. Richard had left the bridge around 1:30 a.m., so he started thinking about going back there again today. And today, he was intending to go there completely equipped. He charged both cameras and recorders' batteries, kept 4 batteries for the torch and a Swiss knife too. As night fell, at around 1:45, he reached the drawbridge. Today, something was different about this bridge. As he climbed it, he felt as if he was disconnected from the whole world. There was no sound except the gurgling of the water. But there was no sound of any passing cars or anything else around. After climbing up on the bridge, he had only gone a little ahead when he heard the signal for the bridge to open. He quickly ran back down, but as he looked up, the bridge had already opened and closed again, without any ship passing through. Richard waited, hoping that something would happen, but nothing did. He was completely dejected. Suddenly, he heard a small ship's horn, and saw that it was very close to the bridge. However, the bridge's warning bells did not ring, nor did it open. As the ship got closer, Richard felt relieved, as the ship was so small that it could easily pass under the bridge without any problem. In front of the bridge, a ship entered from under his nose, but did not come out from the other side. The water on this side of the river was very agitated, and it seemed that a ship had definitely come out. However, on the other side of the river, the water was calm and still. It took him less than a minute to understand everything. He immediately took out a torch from his bag and looked towards the direction where he had seen the ship before. He peered into the river and felt the sound and strong wind of a ship passing by his face. The last time he had seen one ship coming from one direction, but this time he neither saw a ship coming nor going in either direction. He realized that whatever he had read was not just rumors but the truth. When he checked his watch, he was shocked to see that it was upside down. He was scared, but not paralyzed with fear. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the bridge opening and the ship's horn. He started to descend the bridge, but for some reason he turned back and saw that where the bridge had opened, he found himself alone on one side and 4 strangers on the other side of the open bridge. Richard got off the bridge and looked back up with fear and surprise, because one of them had jumped into the water and he had heard a scream and a voice of someone falling into the river. However, there was not a single ripple. One by one, the other 3 also jumped, but the river continued to flow calmly. Everything that was happening to him today was not mentioned in the article. Meanwhile, the bridge started closing again and Richard rushed back up to where he had been standing a short while ago. He took a step forward and put his foot on the other half of the bridge, but immediately a strange sound made him put his hands over his ears and forced him to close his eyes tightly. Around 5 seconds may have passed when the sound was heard, but in that short time, he felt as if his life was slipping away. And when the sound finally stopped, he opened his eyes and saw those same 4 strangers standing far away from him at the mouth of the bridge, soaked in water and staring at him with anger in their eyes. They all took a step forward together and started approaching him. Perhaps anyone else in Richard's place would have run back, but he stood his ground. All of them slowly approached him, and kept staring at him. They kept glancing at him as they walked away, and he could still hear the sound of their footsteps. When he turned back, he felt a jolt as if there were footsteps, but there was no one there. Footprints made of water were forming with every step from the beginning of the bridge to the end. Richard was afraid of what he saw tonight, and he was wandering around aimlessly. When he finally decided to run away, he quickly took out his phone from his pocket and called his friend David. But fate had a different plan, as he kept hearing the same message repeatedly.
"We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again, or call your operator to assist you."
David was the only one who believed in his story and knew about the article besides him. Richard kept trying to call David through his mobile phone, but each time the phone was unreachable. The entire bridge was empty at this moment, no sign of those 4 individuals or any boats. Richard was filled with anticipation as he came to the end of the bridge and spotted a small glass phone booth. He ran towards the booth and opened the door. He picked up the receiver and dialed David's number using the landline, hoping he would answer. Almost instantly, he heard the ringtone and David's voice from the other end.
"Hello."
Richard quickly inserted a coin and began.
"David, the article and the bridge I told you about, it's all true, bro. I'm stuck here and you're the only one who can save me. Come here quickly, otherwise who knows what might happen here."
But David only asked one question in exchange for all of these things.
"Why didn't you use your mobile phone, and where did this landline on the bridge come from?"
Richard explained. It was the same landline phone that was installed at the end of the bridge. And when he tried calling from his mobile phone, it didn't go through, so he used this telephone booth to make the call. David shouted.
"Hey, listen carefully, keep the phone on hold, don't put it down. I'm coming there right away, there is no need to put the receiver on its holder."
Upon hearing this, he didn't ask any more questions and kept looking outside because a voice from outside startled him. Outside, the 4 of them were standing around the booth, shaking it from all sides. There seemed to be many other people with them, as if there was a queue outside the PCO, perhaps waiting to make calls to their loved ones. Richard was holding the phone, and outside, those people kept knocking and shaking the booth. On the other side, David kept saying,
"Bro, no matter what happens, don't hang up the receiver. The phone should not disconnect. I'm coming there right away."
Suddenly, more people gathered around the 4 men, as if a line had formed outside the telephone booth. They were all knocking harder. Meanwhile, David was on his way and could be seen running towards the phone booth. Before he could reach it, the 4 men grabbed him and dragged him away, despite his screams for help. Richard thought about what he could do to save him, and in the heat of the moment, Richard made a mistake. He did the very thing that David had told him not to do, he put the receiver back on the holder. The moment he did that, the 4 strangers who were taking David away stopped dead in their tracks, as if turned into statues. David stopped screaming too, and they let him go. He stumbled towards Richard and said,
"I told you not to put the receiver back. If you had listened to me, you'd still be alive. But you're stubborn. Now what can I do? You'll have to stand in line here every day like the rest of us."
Before Richard could respond, David hit him hard on the head with something, and he fell to the ground, groaning in pain. As David dragged him by his legs and took him to the middle of the bridge, he explained the whole situation.
"A long time ago, there used to be a small town Falmouth on the other side of the river. Dark-skinned people were discriminated against and were sent to live on this side of the river. They had to live in terrible conditions, and the only way they could communicate with the people on the other side was through this telephone booth. If anyone from the other side wanted to meet someone here, both of them would be punished. Living on this side of the river was difficult in every way, and people from the other side wouldn't even spit here. And now it was their turn.
Saying this, David dragged him through the middle of the bridge. The bridge started to creak and slowly began to open. David hung Richard upside down, and all the people standing behind him were watching as if they were witnessing his death. Richard could only hear the sound of the wind in his ears as he approached the water, which was flowing at a height of more than 100 feet. And just like that, Richard fell into the river.